Howdy my totally as always Tubular gamers, we're back with you guessed it, another video. Thanks as always for coming back to the channel, really appreciate it. We got another list for you. Today we're gonna be talking about the 10 best modern racing games you could play. Now racing games have been around since pretty much video games began, but for today's video we're not gonna go that far back. We're gonna look at what can be played on modern hardware. What racing games can you play on your PS5, your Xbox Series, your Switch, or maybe a really nice computer. Maybe in the future I'll look at older racing games beyond the last 10 years. I mean, if you all want to see it, you can let me know. But for today, we're looking at just the modern racing games, and I'll emphasize racing games, not games with driving, not games with the occasional race. You're not going to find GTA here. You're not going to find Mud Runners or Watch Dogs or Jak 2 or any game that has racing that is not a racing game. It has to be a racing game first and foremost. I'm also only allowing one entry per series, otherwise Forza would just kind of dominate this list. It also should be mentioned that I much prefer arcade racers to sim. If you like your sims, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I like my sim racer from time to time, but I've always much preferred the arcade racers, and so a majority of this list is arcade racers. As always, this list, ranking, whatever you want to call it, is based completely off my personal taste, my opinion, and how much I like these games. If you think I'm missing a game, or I didn't mention a game, or your list looks completely different, or you disagree with me, let me know down below. I'd love to read it. I'd love to learn about some new racing games I haven't played, so please let me know how you're feeling about this list. And of course, in the future there'll probably be some awesome racing games that would make this list, so it's bound to be outdated at some point, so please keep that in mind. So let's get right into it. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. We got the super thanks and the Patreon. Any support is truly, and I mean truly, greatly appreciated. Of these 10 awesome games, which do I think is the weakest? In the number 10 spot we have Cruisin Blast for the Nintendo Switch. Originally starting as an arcade only title, I'm so glad that this did come to a home console, and that's because this game is absolutely wild. You might not remember the cruising games from a long time ago, but if the name Cruisin USA rings a bell, this is the follow-up many years later to the last cruising game, and it's like they brought the Cruisin series into the modern era. I truly believe this is the best of the entire Cruisin franchise and one of the craziest racing games you could play on anything nowadays. The game is as arcade of a racing game as it gets, where you go incredibly fast. This game's sense of speed is crazy. You're doing tricks left and right. You do these giant drifts to get a bunch of boost. There's boosting left and right. Rubber bandy is all hell AI, and then you have a bunch of different, not just vehicles, but modes of transportation ranging from, you know, some cars, maybe some larger cars, to a unicorn, a shark, a tank, a UFO. Seriously, you can drive in some absolutely crazy stuff in this game, and it's a total, as the name implies, blast. This game is a bunch of fun. You have such a great sense of speed. I really enjoy the tracks in this game for the most part. While a bunch of them are repeated over and over with different sections, what we have here is gold. It's so good, where you go off these giant jumps and the whole world is just seemingly falling apart on you. Like, the set pieces during these races is just awesome, and I love it. I had a lot of fun with this one. I was smiling pretty much the entire time. The game is not perfect by any means. The presentation is a little on the lacking side, at least the frame rate's solid. The AI, like I mentioned, is mad rubber bandy. Seriously, it's some of the most rubber bandy AI I have ever seen in a video game. A bunch of the tracks get repeated, and by about 4 or 5 hours you really have seen everything this game has to offer. But man, those 4 or 5 hours are some of the most fun you could have legit with any arcade racer nowadays. If you have a Switch and any interest in racing games, I really think you should check this one out. It's getting pretty cheap nowadays also. I don't think you'll regret it. I mean, just look at the sense of speed you're getting in this game. It is great, and yeah, it's a blast, pun intended. And in the number 9 spot we have Hot Wheels Unleashed 2. Now, Hot Wheels in video games are not strangers. These two have known each other for well over 20 years. Don't believe them if they say it's a first date, because it's not. They've already got kids at this point. Don't believe them, and one of those kids is Hot Wheels Unleashed 2. I've played plenty of Hot Wheels games, especially back in the day, but this one tops them all. It's the best of any Hot Wheels game. This game is a lot of fun. It really captures the spirit and energy of just a kid playing with their toys, creating some tracks in their house and having the cars race each other. I think this game is great for kids and adults. Kids are going to like it because cars go vroom vroom and look cool, and adults are going to remember back to when they were kids and playing with Hot Wheels. I think this game, it just works for everybody. So this game does actually have a story, like a story mode complete with cutscenes and characters, but I've always just kind of ignored that and pretended it's just a kid playing with their Hot Wheels, and you can't tell me otherwise. I mean, the aesthetic, the presentation, presentation certainly gives that off. I think this game looks great, and I love how the cars are incredibly detailed, and some of them that I did have as a kid look exactly how they did when I was a kid, which is really cool. But I think the racing, the moment-to-moment gameplay is incredibly solid as well. It is very arcade. You'll be doing drifts, you'll be doing boosts, you can jump whenever you want at the press of a button. You'll be going off these giant ramp. There's even some anti-gravity stuff that shows up. This game has a very good sense of speed to it. You feel very fast frequently, even in the slowest cars. And I thought that this game not only had a great sense of speed, but just a really nice feel to it. I think it's even better than the first Hot Wheels Unleashed. There's a bunch of awesome tracks here, but it doesn't end at what they made. You can make your own tracks, because of course you can. It's a Hot Wheels game. You can make whatever track you want. You can download other people's track. You can play online and race on those. The microtransactions are not as bad as the first games. This really is like the best Hot Wheels game of them all. If you liked Unleashed or you liked Hot Wheels as a kid, I really think this one's actually worth checking out. It's a solid arcade racer that is at the very least a few hours of fun. And in the number 8 spot, we have Need for Speed Unbound. Now, I have played every Need for Speed game. I have ranked every Need for Speed game. I'm going to have a link somewhere in the description or on screen or something. I love Need for Speed. This is one of my favorite racing series of all time, and I could have chosen a ton of different Need for Speed games here. I could have had Rivals or Heat or the 2015 game or even Hot Pursuit Remastered, but it feels kind of cheating to have the remaster. Out of all of the newer Need for Speed games from the last 10 or so years, my favorite genuinely has been Unbound. I know the Need for Speed community is very, very divided. I have seen it all in the comments on those Need for Speed videos, so you can really just put whatever Need for Speed game from the last 10 years you enjoyed the most right here. I'm picking Unbound. I think Unbound is the best of the recent Need for Speed games thanks to the open world, the driving, the feel, the personality, the story, the progression, and just how much fun I had with the game. The open world is very reminiscent to Chicago, and it's not the best open world the series has ever seen. Nothing's really ever going to touch Underground 2, but I think it was decent enough. It has some unique areas and it has a different feel to it from other games. The driving itself is quite arcade, but I actually like how the new Need for Speed games control, where you gotta like double tap LT to do the drifts, and I think this game has a very good sense of speed to it, especially by the end of the game when you start going really fast, but you actually really do work your way up to this. I really enjoy the progression of this game. You start in a slow-ass junker, and slowly but surely you upgrade your vehicle, you get a new car, you start going faster and faster, and before you know it, you're blazing through the city, and yeah, I think it has a very good progression system. I like the flow of this game. I like the whole system with the days and the races. I like the little bit of risk versus reward you have in staying out and doing more races and events. It's not as good as Heat's, but I think that it still is alright. I think the car selection's solid. I think the game looks great. I know a few people didn't like the aesthetic and the cell shading, but I actually really enjoy it. I think it looks great. I think it has a personality. I like that it doesn't look homogenized like so many other racing games these days, and it just has a unique feel to it, and I hope it stays in the series. Look, Unbound is clearly not everyone's cup of tea. I know plenty of people have roasted it. I will say I don't really care for the music. It's not my style, but I think this game is pretty good. And like most of the games in this list, it's dirt cheap. If you like Need for Speed, totally worth checking out. Also worth checking out that I ranked every single Need for Speed game. It took a long ass time, but yeah, I did it. And in the number 7 spot, you may or may not have heard of it. It is Horizon Chase Turbo. And if you haven't heard it, listen here, this is one of the best arcade racers, not just of the modern era, but any era. This game is awesome. So this game is basically a throwback to older racing games like Pole Position, complete with the scrolling background, crazy sense of speed, and cars getting in the way. And this game is a racing game in its most pure form. You really are just doing race after race after race. Occasionally, you'll have like a time trial or maybe some other little kind of event, but it really is for a majority of the time just racing. There's a number of cars to drive here. They all do feel different from each other, which is nice, but when it comes to the tracks and environments, there's a ton in this game. You go through a lot of different environments. You go all over the world. It's not just a bunch of generic places you've seen before. Sure, you have like California show up, but you go to like Morocco and you go to places that aren't usually seen in games, let alone racing games, and I really can appreciate that here. I can appreciate the aesthetic. It's simple, sure, but it still looks nice. This game, when it comes to its sense of speed, is almost unmatched. You go really fast in this game. You feel incredibly fast, and the game just plays really fast. At times it gets even white knuckle. And this game isn't a breeze either. Just because you're going really fast doesn't mean you're the only one. All the other cars are going really fast. This game actually has a bit of bite, and it will challenge you. especially if you're trying to 100% it and get all the coins, which I recommend. It's totally worth it. This game actually has a good amount of content to it, way more than you would expect. It has easily 8 to 10 hours of gameplay, which is more than the sequel. And speaking of the sequel, I was very tempted to have the sequel in the spot, but ultimately I'm gonna go with the original. I like the original just a little bit more. It's also stupid cheap. When I say dirt cheap, this game is cheaper than dirt at Lowe's. It is incredibly cheap, and if you like arcade racers, this should not be missed. So for number 6, we have Crash Team Racing Nitrofield. Now, I love the original CTR. It really is one of my favorite racing games of all time. It also has a crazy high skill ceiling, but Nitrofield, it is the real deal. While it does have a few things I don't like, particularly the monetization and microtransactions, I can overlook it just due to the sheer amount of content this game has, and how it not only remakes the original CTR, but builds on top of it, adds new tracks, and adds just a ton of Crash's history to it. This is one of the best arcade racers you could play nowadays. Gameplay wise, it's virtually the same as the original CTR. It's crazy to see how well the original CTR's aged that they barely even needed to touch it up for this remake. It feels a little better, but it's very, very similar to the original. You have a good sense of speed, you can do jumps, you can drift, you can boost, there's items to use, but the main focus, the main gimmick if you will, of CTR has always been the drifting and the boosting. The drifting is incredibly rewarding, satisfying, and fun in this game. Chaining drifts together, chaining your boosts together has always been the focus, and it's always been a blast. And it's as much fun, if not more fun nowadays than it was in the 90s. You chain together these crazy amounts of boosts to just go super fast. Seriously, the sense of speed you sometimes get in these courses is great, and these courses, oh, they're all awesome. They have fully remade every course from the original CTR, and there really wasn't a bad course in that game, but they have various courses from all the other Crash racing games, a couple new ones in there. Like, the course selection is fantastic. It is excellent and some of the best of any kart racer. There's also a lot of characters and customization for these characters and karts, which I can appreciate. Unfortunately, this game does have microtransactions and monetization. You can get everything in game, but you're going to do a lot of grinding and playing this game a lot if you want to get even half the stuff in this game, which is a real shame. I remember when there was no microtransactions and it was fine, and unfortunately they added them later, and that's really my biggest hurdle with this game. But overlooking those, this game has a lot of content. It's got a meaty single player that's fun, it's got multiplayer, it's got time trials. The game actually is very replayable. I have a good amount of time with it, and I'll continue to put time into it because I doubt they're making another Crash racing game anytime soon. If you like kart racers, this really is a must play. And in the number 5 spot, we have Recfest. Now, I've never really talked about Recfest on the channel, and that's a shame because I love Recfest. I love the Flat Out games, particularly Flat Out 2 and Ultimate Carnage. I'm a big fan of Bugbear, the developer, and so when they showed off Recfest when it was known as Next Car Game, I backed that immediately on Kickstarter. I was really excited. In this game, it does not disappoint. While this game is not as arcade as Flat Out, like you can't boost, and it is a lot more realistic with its car damage, it is some of the most fun you'll have in any driving game. The game is very much a demolition derby racing game where cars just get absolutely totaled. You will not find another video game that features cars getting this totaled. In most racing games, you know, the car gets dented, maybe the glass cracks or something. No, not here. The cars get absolutely destroyed where it looks like they're just barely holding together. And that's not only during the races, there's events here also. There's some really wacky events. There's some demolition derby events. This game actually has a good amount of variety with its events. You won't just be racing the whole time. And sure, racing's fun and all, but I love these events and I love just completely annihilating the other cars. Everything to do with damage, from the modeling to destroying the other cars to just how satisfying it is. Oh, it's so great. There is no game that could match this. Flat Out, you could get the cars pretty totaled, but it wasn't this totaled. And sure, this game doesn't have the greatest sense of speed. You're in pieces of shit. You're in junkers. You're not going to be going all that fast. It's not even as fast as the Flat Out games, but this game totally makes up for it with the destruction, the carnage, how aggressive it is, and just how much personality this game has. This game is very different from all the other games on the list, and it reminds me of a time when we used to get more games like this. This is like the only realistic car game that has this much damage and carnage. Unless I'm just, you know, totally missing something, which if I am, you can let me know down below. But I have no problem recommending Recfest to anybody that likes driving games. I'm hoping we get a second one soon. I really have this feeling that we're going to get a second one in the next couple years. And I'll totally be there day one because this is some of the most fun I've had with any driving game. And in the number 4 spot, we have Gran Turismo 7. Yes, there actually is a sim racer on this list. This is the only one, but out of all the modern sim racers I played, this one is the best in my opinion. The Gran Turismo series doesn't really need much of an introduction. It's a very long-running, respected racing game series, and this new one, I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's actually one of the best ones in quite some time. The other ones were cool and all, but this one, I don't know, it just hit different, and I really enjoyed my time with it. As I've mentioned, this game is very sim-oriented. You can really customize how sim you want it. If you want it more difficult to drive than even in real life, you can have that. If you want it a little arcadey, you can have that too. I played it somewhere in the middle, but I had fun. The Gran Turismo games are really known for their amazing car selection, and this game, yeah, it has a great selection. There are so many cars here to choose from that I don't even know where to start. The car selection, it really is amazing. When it comes to the tracks, there's a lot of realistic tracks you'll get to drive on, so that's really cool. The first thing you'll probably immediately notice if you look at this gameplay is the presentation. The presentation is nothing short of phenomenal. This is one of the very best racing games graphically. Seriously, it just looks crazy good. The interiors look great, the cars on the outside look great, the environments are solid. Like, it's a really good looking game. And then when it comes to the content, when it comes to the races, this game has a fair amount of content. There's a good amount of single player. You can of course play online. You can try to get as many cars as you want. There's also the fun music events. Yeah, this game has a lot of content. All the Gran Turismo games do, and this one's no different. Of course, there is the issue with the microtransactions. This is just ridiculous, and I'd rather not go into it in this video, but the base game, I think it's very good, and I think you'll get a lot of time with this one. Hopefully one day I'll talk about the Gran Turismo series in full, but that day is not today. If you've ever had any interest in sim racers or Gran Turismo in general, this one, it really shouldn't be missed. It's really quite good. And in the number 3 spot, we have Trackmania Turbo. And I can see your face now. You're really going, you have this game above Gran Turismo 7? Really? Yes, really. This is my list. I love Trackmania Turbo. I was there day one, loved it then, and I love it nowadays, day whatever it is. Sure, there is a newer Trackmania that is still getting support and has a pretty big online community, bigger than this game's, but it doesn't top Turbo in my opinion. Turbo just hits different. Now for the unfamiliar, the Trackmania series is very different from any other racing series. Rather than being, more traditional where the cars can bump each other like, any other racing game, here you're racing with time trials, and instead of normal courses and laps, you're actually going through obstacle courses, trying to get the very best times. There's really no other racing series like Trackmania, and I've always been huge on this series, but Turbo really just has the best levels in my opinion, the best vehicles, the best feel, and it just has an amazing personality. You get 4 different vehicles to drive, all of which feel incredibly different and have their own strengths and weaknesses, and go through 4 completely different environments. None of the environments are like the other, and while other Trackmania games have more vehicles and environments, I think these 4 are like the 4 strongest in any Trackmania game. Seriously, they are so much fun. They're all incredibly unique and feel different from each other. Whether you're doing these giant drifts, you're going super fast and going through loops, maybe it's the traditional stadium mode or the down and dirty buggy. This game, it has a great amount of variety when it comes to the environments, when it comes to all the tracks. Like, this game has so many tracks to go through, more so than like any other Trackmania game. I put a lot of time into this to complete all of them. There is multiplayer. Unfortunately, it's not the most alive, and the community isn't really creating anything for it because the tools to create stuff was not as good as other Trackmania games. But single player is amazing, and if you can find anyone playing online, I'm sure it's fun. But Trackmania Turbo is really one of those games that I've come back to so many times over just to try to get a better time, do better and better. Like, it's so satisfying to get a better time in this game. It's kind of hard to describe. If you've played this game, really any Trackmania, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That challenging but satisfying loop that these games absolutely master. This game is the definition of a hidden gem. I didn't see very many people talk about it when it came out. I sure as hell don't see anybody talking about it nowadays, but here I am. I'm gonna sing this game's praises till I'm in the grave because I love it. And in the number 2 spot, we have Forza Horizon 5. Now, there is a lot of Forza games to choose from the main series to the other Horizon games, but I think the best of them all really is Forza Horizon 5. It is the culmination of what the series has been building up to and is some of the most fun you can have with any racing game. This game is truly just a joy to play. They put you in this giant open world and give you a lot of different events to do, and they're constantly rewarding you with new cars, new upgrades, and just new ways to stimulate disappoint you. It just feels like this game never got old. No matter how much time I put into it, I was always discovering new events, new locations, new secrets, new cars, new upgrades. There's community creations. There's like a battle royale mode here. The entire game can be played cooperatively. You can have a load of fun by yourself. You can have just as much, if not more fun with your friends. Like, it really feels like they just gave you as many options to having fun with this game as possible. I love the variety with the events, whether you're, trekking through the jungle in like a Jeep, or maybe you're driving down the streets of Mexico crazy fast in one of the street races. Yeah, the game really never gets old. There's so many events. They're all different from each other. I like how this game just tries to have a bunch of different types of vehicles and ways to race, more so than even the previous Forza Horizon games, which had a ton of different ways also, especially Forza Horizon 3. I really like that one, but 5 just hits a little different, and it hits the best. It's definitely my favorite. The game is beautiful. It's just one of the best looking games I've ever seen. Sure, Forza Motorsport 8 probably looks better, but I love just how this game looks. It just has so much going on with it. The aesthetic's great, the radio's great, the vibes are good, the customization is decent, the interface is solid. This game really has everything you could be looking for in a modern driving game. I know there are plenty of detractors with this game since, it's not a sim, it's not crazy serious, but the amount of fun I had in this game, way more compared to pretty much any of the other modern Forza game. You really can't go wrong with any of the Forza games, but Horizon 5, that's my pick. That's what I'm sticking to right now, and it is truly one of the greatest racing games probably ever made. But here we have it, my number one modern racing game, and you knew it had to be Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch. Like, I absolutely love this game. When it came out on the Wii U like 10 years ago, I played the crap out of it. It was my most played Wii U game. Then when it came to the Switch, I put just as much time into it, and now there's all the DLC. Yeah, this game really is, in my opinion, not only the best of the Mario Kart series, but one of the very best racing games ever made, and is likely the best kart racer, just period. There's a lot of fantastic kart racers I didn't talk about today, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe really is at the top of the mountain. It is the king of the castle. This game is really just unparalleled. I'm sure there are plenty of people that are rolling their eyes. They've been rolling their eyes this entire video that I didn't include all these super serious sims like Assetto Corsa, but man, I love my arcade racers. I love my kart racers, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, this is the most fun I've had with any of the games on this list, whether I was by myself, whether I was with my friends, whether I was playing online in a party setting, or being kind of serious with a friend or two. I've just had a ton of fun with this game. It has a great character selection. Now that Diddy Kong is there, it's got a ton of different vehicles to choose from. The track selection legit is unparalleled. It is fantastic. It's the best of the Mario Karts. It's so good, like, especially with the DLC. It is untouchable. It is really the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate of the Mario Kart series. It is crazy good when it comes to the track selection, and then the racing mechanics are just really the best of almost any racing game, in my opinion. The karts all feel really nice, the bikes feel great, almost all the vehicles feel different from each other. You can really customize how you want each one to feel. The drifting's great, it's satisfying, it's easy to do, hard to master. Tricks are great, finding the most optimal route. Of course, there's items that can always throw a wrench into things, but I actually think the balancing is pretty good with the items. I like the newer structure they have towards the items, where it's how far you are from first place. I like the double item boxes in Deluxe. I enjoy all the modes in this game, whether it's the Grand Prix, the time trial, or even the battle mode that came back in Deluxe. I think it's great. This game just has a lot of content. And not only is it a must-own for Switch players, I think it really is a must-own for anybody that likes racing games at all. Sure, it's Mario Kart. It's not the most serious, and it doesn't have the most realistic driving physics or mechanics or vehicles outside of the Mercedes-Benz that's in this game for some reason. But damn it, is it fun? And that's really what it's all about at the end of the day, is how much fun did you have with these games. All of these games, I had a lot of fun with them, but Mario Kart 8, it really just is untouchable. This is the game I put the most time into as well, so maybe that plays a factor, but I just love this game. It really is just kind of goated for me. One day maybe we'll get Mario Kart 9, unless you count Tour. But if this somehow, I really doubt it, was the last Mario Kart we got, I'd die happy, because it really is that good. Alright, so that's the end of the video. Let me know your favorite racing games down below if you made it to this part of the video. Why don't you comment Diddy Kong? We're really happy Diddy Kong came back to Mario Kart. It's about time you comment that. That's a secret code word. You made it to the end of the video. Get a little heart from me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.